Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum. So today we will be talking about chapter 4, which is to analyze your internal environment. But before that, let's recap the processes of strategic management. Remember, the first process is to analyze your environment. And the second one is to establish a strategic direction. Your third is to formulate a strategy, right? And the fourth one is to implement the strategy. So under analyzing the environment, you know you have broad environment, your external environment, right? And the other one is your internal environment, which we will be talking about today. Okay. So what is the internal environment actually? The internal environment is everything that is inside the organization. So in other words, we can say that these are the things that is within our organization's control, right? Because you can't control your external environment. Probably you can influence it a little bit if you are big enough, but you can't control them. But for the internal environment, it is within the CEO's reach. It is within the top management's reach for you to be able to control them. So it is considered as the conditions, including your strategic resources such as your plants, your machineries, your buildings, your skills, even your human resource, okay? Even your people, even your employees, those are resources. This includes your abilities or your employees' abilities as well as the management capabilities. Because if you don't have a good management to manage your resources, it's even if your resources is very good, even if you have rare resources or inimitable resources, it is still unuseful, right? It is still not useful for you to be successful. Okay, if you remember, the strategic management, we have several views of the strategic management. The first view is going to be the traditional view or the classical view, which sees the firm as an economic entity, and the second one is the RBV, right? And then the third one is the stakeholders view, and then the fourth one combines of the first, second, and third, which we call as contemporary view. So let's go back to the second one, the RBV, the resource-based view. So under the resource-based view, it is believed that firms can be sustainable or can be successful if they can manage their resources well, right? So as you can see here on the definition on the slides itself, you can see that the RBV firms that uses the RBV, they view their resources to be a competitive advantage for them. Okay, so when they can they also believe that superior performance are based on the internal management of these resources. Okay, firm specific resources matter most for you to be able to be competitive in the market. Okay, so internal strategic assets are considered to be the core competencies for firms. Okay, so companies have been using their unique working culture to gain competitive advantage in the market. Let's take a look at Twitter. Twitter itself, they have meetings on rooftop. They have free drinks for their employees, and in their headquarters in San Francisco, they provide free meals, free yoga classes. When everyone is happy, they will also work happily, and that makes happy customers. So customers will keep coming back. You know, like for example, in hotels, if you don't have to go through so much red tapes and you can just simply upgrade a customer if you feel the customer deserves to be upgraded, then it makes the customer happy. It makes you happy as well, right? So that is an example of a good working culture that's going to work up to your own advantage. So for intangible resources, they are harder to be imitated. It's hard for our rivals to copy them. So this is true for organizational culture, the culture within the organization. Outside, it can't be seen. Okay, people can't really see it unless, of course, they are in the organization itself. They are experiencing it firsthand, right? So these are the kind of resources that's not going to be copied easily by your rivals. We're going to talk more about types of resources later on. Okay, so the definition of resources in organization by Penrose is very interesting. Penrose suggests that we define our resources in terms of its value in supporting our strategy and not focusing only solely on the narrow economic value of the resources itself. So here are the types of resources that we have in organizations. As you can see, there's five. There's financial, there's physical, there's knowledge and learning, human resources, as well as general organizational resources. Let's have a look at financial. Why is it important for firms to have a very strong cash flow? Why is it important for firms to have a good threshold for liquidity? It makes it easier for them to pay off their debts. It makes creditors to feel safe with them. The creditors will trust them if they have a good financial standings. If you have a lot of cash reserves, you can also make good investments. In 2009, there was a fluctuations of the crude oil price, where at the end of the day, only Singapore Airlines managed to record profit, and the rest of the airlines were in red. So when I say they were in red, they did not record any profit. Instead, they record losses. This is because Singapore Airlines at that point of time, they have the biggest cash reserves. So they can still pay off their debts, they can still pay off everything that they owe, they can still pay their employees, and they can still report profit at the end of the day. Okay, let's take a look at physical resources. Physical resources are the things that you can see, such as your machineries, your plants, your buildings, your hotel buildings, as well as your location or your plant that produce good output effectively or efficiently. You have to have ample space, right? The space is also your physical asset or physical resource. Probably you can obtain a very scarce raw materials which others cannot obtain, so that is also considered as your physical asset. Let's take a look an example of the LSG Brahim Skychefs, right? The main caterer for airlines in Malaysia or in Kuala Lumpur. They have a huge plant that allows them to actually produce 60,000 meals a day. This can't be done if you have a very small plant, right? That's why they have a competitive advantage over Class Catering. If I'm not mistaken, Class can only produce like 10,000 meals per day. That was back then. I don't know how much they can produce right now. As compared to 60,000 and 10,000, if you are a big carrier that flies frequently to Malaysia, then definitely you would opt for LSG Skychef because they are bigger, they can produce the meals that you want at the requirement that you want it. So that's how your physical asset can be a competitive advantage. For location also plays a part. For business hotels, they want to be smack right in the middle of Kuala Lumpur, right? If they are closer to the city, if you go for a location, it doesn't matter if you are a business traveler or a tourist, you definitely want to stay next to KLCC. Okay, if you look for something that's very city-like, if you love the city, you would want to stay right next to KLCC. If you have meetings in KLCC or if you have meetings in Ampang, Jalan Ampang, you would want to stay in KLCC, right? Marriott, it's not so close to KLCC. Marriott is closer to Pavilion. It's also expensive. Okay, it's also those range of price, right? 600, 500. Okay, so location, like Donald Trump used to say. Okay, so location also plays a part. And then we'll take a look at knowledge and learning. How can knowledge and learning be a competitive advantage for a firm? So for organizations that encourages knowledge, encourages learning in their environment, or they can develop the skills for their employees. And when the employee understand that they are being taken care in the organization or in the firms, they will tend to stay, right? Because they see that, hey, if I stay here, there's a lot of career opportunities for me. There's a lot of learning opportunities for me. So I like it here because everyone, for you to be able to thrive in an organization, you need to be able to have that sense of learning. You can't stay if you feel static in one place. You don't tend to stay. You tend to quit your job and move on somewhere else. Okay. All right. As for human, especially in our hospitality industry, where it's a labor-intensive industry, right? So we need a lot of people to manage our customers. We need a lot of people to deal with our customers, which we can totally understand why human resource can be a competitive advantage for us, because understaffing doesn't work for the service industry. On top of that, if you have a good manager, then you are going to be very lucky, because the manager itself, or the CEO of the company, the directors, they are in charge of managing all these resources. So if they mismanage resources, then organizations will not be successful. So what about general organizational resources? This is such as your brand name or the goodwill that you have with your customers. So these are what we call as general organizational resources, or probably even patents under your name. As you can see here, superior linkages with stakeholders is also considered as a general organizational resources. If you have good linkages with the stakeholders, you can operate better, or you can get opportunities. For example, like Genting, they are the only casino organization in Malaysia, or integrated resort as they call themselves, right? As for exclusive contacts or exclusive contracts, we can look at previously Brahim's, right? Other than being the biggest airline caterer or airline food provider in Malaysia, they also provide meals for the military. Right? You know the rations that the army carries in their backpack? They also do that. Rahim's has a 25-year-old contract with Malaysia Airlines. Normally, typically contracts are for 2+1 or 2+3 years, something like that, 5 years, but this is 25 years. It's pretty weird. As you can see, resources can be divided onto tangible and intangible resources. Because you are hospitality students, it's easy for you. You know what tangible means, you know what intangible means. Let's take a look at some examples of the tangible resources and capabilities. Financial is tangible, you can see it. Your ability to generate internal funds, or probably your ability to generate money from selling of stocks, or your ability to get loan from the banks, right? Ability to raise external capitals. As for physical resources, it's your location of plants, your location, machines, offices, and geographic locations, as well as access to raw materials. If you are good with the suppliers, then probably the supplier will favor you and provide you with the best materials that they have. Again, with technological, you have patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. This can be seen. Okay, as for organizational, you have formal planning processes in place. You have the correct documentation. If you know good documentation or control system, so that is tangible. As for intangible, you can take a look at talent, the skill that your managers have, okay, your organizational culture or climate, innovation, your research and development. Sometimes ideas cannot be translated into written format or into an innovation. So if you have the idea first, that can be considered as your resource as well. So the capacity or the talent or the skills to create new product and innovation. And again, reputation as under general organizational resources.